The town of Harmony Creek, nestled deep within the Appalachian Mountains, was the kind of place time forgot. Cell service was spotty, the nearest chain store was a 2-hour drive, and the most exciting event was the annual pie eating contest at the county fair. The IT was a place where everyone knew everyone. Secrets didn't stay secret for long, and progress moved at a snail's pace. Harmony Creek was fading, its younger generations drawn to the allure of city life, leaving behind a dwindling population of folks who clung to the old ways. At the edge of town, just past the weathered sign that read, "Welcome to Harmony Creek." Population 487 and decreasing, sat Earl's garage. Earl, a man etched with the wisdom of 80-odd years and the grease of 1,000 engines, was as much a fixture of Harmony Creek as the ancient oak tree in the town square. His hands, gnarled and calloused, possessed an uncanny ability to coax life back into sputtering engines and mend broken axles. Earl wasn't just a mechanic. He was an artist of automobile repair, a whisperer to wounded machines. He preferred the challenge of a classic carburetor to the sterile efficiency of modern computer diagnostics. His garage, a testament to his long career, was a chaotic symphony of spare parts, tools hanging from every conceivable surface, and a lingering scent of oil and gasoline. Despite his skill, Earl's garage was struggling. Modern cars, with their intricate electronics and specialized parts, were beyond his expertise. The younger generation, with their sleek imported vehicles, bypassed his shop for dealerships in the city. Earl's business depended on the few remaining locals who still drove their trusty, if aging, pickup trucks and sedans. He barely made enough to keep the lights on and put food on the table. But Earl never complained. He loved his work, loved the challenge of fixing things, and loved the quiet rhythm of life in Harmony Creek. That he was content, or so he thought, until a sleek, vintage Jaguar coughed its last breath just outside his door. The sleek, vintage Jaguar, a 63 E-Type in pristine condition, didn't just break down, it shuddered, coughed, and died a dramatic death right in front of Earl's garage, as if staging a theatrical entrance. Behind the wheel sat Jason Statham, looking less like an action hero and more like a frustrated tourist. He'd chosen this route, a meandering back road across the country, precisely to avoid attention that he craved, anonymity, a break from the relentless glare of Hollywood. The vintage car was part of the disguise, a deliberate attempt to blend in, to become just another face on the road. He'd been enjoying the drive, the wind in his hair, or what was left of it, the purr of the engine, the stunning scenery. For a few days, he was just Jason, a man on a road trip, not Jason Statham, the international movie star. Now, stranded in the middle of nowhere with a dead car, his carefully constructed illusion was crumbling faster than a poorly made movie set. Statham climbed out of the car, a scowl etched on his face. He ran a hand through his closely cropped hair, surveying the scene. To Earl's garage looked like something out of a forgotten era, a place where time stood still. He considered calling his team, having the car towed to a proper shop in the nearest city. But that would mean exposure, questions, and the end of his peaceful escape. That he needed to fix this, and he needed to do it quietly. He glanced at the garage, then back at the car. He knew enough about cars to be dangerous, but not enough to diagnose a problem like this. He popped the hood, peering into the engine compartment with a mixture of apprehension and determination. IT looked like a metallic jungle, a tangled mess of wires, hoses, and greasy components. He sighed. This was going to be more complicated than he thought. He slammed the hood shut, the sound echoing in the quiet afternoon air. With a reluctant shrug, he headed towards Earl's garage, hoping the old mechanic could offer some salvation, and maybe, just maybe, keep his secrets safe. He pulled his baseball cap lower, hoping it would provide some semblance of disguise. The bell above the door of Earl's garage jingled as Statham entered, announcing his presence to the dimly lit interior. Earl, hunched over a sputtering lawnmower engine, looked up, his eyes magnified by thick spectacles, taking in the stranger with a practiced glance. That he saw the expensive boots, the designer jeans, the carefully cultivated stubble, a city dweller definitely out of place in Harmony Creek. "Afternoon," Earl said, his voice raspy but friendly. "Something I can do for you?" Statham, still pulling at the brim of his cap, nodded towards the door. My car broke down right outside a 63 Type. Earl's eyes lit up. An E-Type? A beauty, that is. Let's have a look. He wiped his hands on a rag, leaving streaks of grease on his already soiled overalls, and ambled outside, his gait surprisingly spry for a man his age. He circled the Jaguar, his gaze lingering on every curve and chrome detail. He ran a hand along the hood, a gesture of reverence. A real classic, he murmured, more to himself than to Statham. Don't see many of these around anymore. Then he got down to business that he listened to Statham describe the symptoms, asked probing questions about the car's recent performance, and then, with a grunt, he was under the hood, his hands moving with a familiarity that belied his age. He didn't use any fancy diagnostic equipment, just his ears, his nose, and his years of experience. He sniffed the fuel lines, listened to the engine turn over, or rather, try to turn over, and ran his fingers along the wiring harness. Statham watched, impressed despite himself. This wasn't the clean, computerized efficiency of a modern garage. This was old-school troubleshooting, a man relying on his instincts and knowledge. Earl's methods were almost visceral. He wasn't just fixing a machine. He was communing with it. After a few minutes of poking and prodding, Earl emerged, wiping his hands again. I think I got an idea what's going on, he said, a twinkle in his eye. Looks like your fuel pump gave out. Common problem on these old girls. Got a replacement in the back that won't be original, but it'll get you back on the road. Statham felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this wasn't going to be a complete disaster after all. Replacing the fuel pump wasn't a quick fix. The part Earl had wasn't a perfect match, requiring some modifications and adjustments. Earl, however, seemed to relish the challenge, his movements deliberate and precise, honed by decades of experience. Statham, initially pacing nervously, found himself drawn into the process, that he started asking questions, genuinely curious about the intricacies of the engine and Earl's methods. Earl, in turn, was happy to share his knowledge. He spoke of carburetors and distributors with the affection others reserve for family members. He explained the nuances of the E-Type's engine, its quirks and its strengths, his words painting a vivid picture of a bygone era of automotive engineering. He told stories of cars he'd worked on over the years, each tale a snapshot of a life lived among wrenches and engines. As the afternoon wore on, a comfortable rhythm developed. Earl would work on the car, occasionally pausing to explain something to Statham, who would listen intently, his initial anxiety slowly fading. They talked about cars, of course, but the conversation drifted to other things. Life in Harmony Creek, the changing world, the importance of simple pleasures. Statham, still guarded, revealed little about himself, but he found himself opening up more than he had in years. That he spoke of his travels, his work, vaguely described as entertainment, and his longing for a simpler life. Earl, in his grandfatherly way, offered nuggets of wisdom gleaned from a long and hard-working life. He spoke of the importance of honesty, the value of hard work, and the beauty of finding contentment in the present moment. Statham, used to the superficiality of Hollywood, found Earl's genuine sincerity refreshing. That a natural bond formed between the two men, an unlikely friendship forged in the crucible of a broken-down car, and a shared appreciation for craftsmanship. Statham, though still mindful of maintaining a low profile, began to relax, his shoulders losing some of their tension. He was still Jason Statham, the movie star, but for a few precious hours he was also just Jason, a man connecting with another human being in the quiet solitude of a forgotten town. The setting sun cast long shadows across Earl's garage, painting the scene in a warm, nostalgic glow. The tranquility of the late afternoon was shattered by the insistent ringing of Statham's phone. He pulled it from his pocket, glancing at the caller ID. Rick, Team Statham. He sighed inwardly. The real world was intruding on his brief escape. That he stepped away from Earl, who was meticulously tightening a bolt, and answered the call. "Rick, what's up?" he said, his voice low. "Jason, where are you? We've been trying to reach you all day. The studio is going crazy. They need you back on set ASAP. The weather window for that helicopter shot is closing." Rick's voice was a frantic buzz of urgency. Statham ran a hand through his hair, his frustration palpable. I told you, Rick. I'm taking a few days. I'll be back when I'm back. But Jason, Rick's voice pleaded. They're talking about delaying the entire production. And Maria is furious you missed your stunt rehearsal. Statham lowered his voice even further, acutely aware of Earl's presence, though the old mechanic seemed engrossed in his work. Tell Maria I'll buy her dinner, and tell the studio to relax that I'll be there in a couple of days. The conversation continued for a few more minutes, filled with veiled references to film shoots, demanding schedules, and the logistical complexities of his highly orchestrated life. Rick mentioned security protocols and press junkets, painting a picture of a world far removed from the quiet simplicity of Harmony Creek. Finally, Statham ended the call, his brow furrowed. He turned back to Earl, offering a sheepish smile. Sorry about that. Work stuff? Earl, ever the unassuming gentleman, simply nodded. Sounds like you got a demanding job, he said, wiping his hands on a rag. Important people depending on you, I reckon. He chuckled. Reminds me of old man Hemlock down the street. Runs the hardware store, but if he ain't there to open up at 7 sharp, the whole town grinds to a halt. Statham smiled, relieved that Earl hadn't picked up on the subtle clues about his true identity. He was just another guy with a demanding white-collar job. As far as Earl was concerned, the protective bubble of anonymity, though momentarily punctured, was still intact. But he knew, with a growing sense of inevitability, that it wouldn't last forever. Dusk settled over Harmony Creek, casting long shadows across the valley. Earl finally declared the repair complete. He turned the key in the ignition, and the Jaguar roared to life, its engine purring like a contented cat. Statham couldn't help but smile. The car sounded better than it had in weeks. Sounds good, Earl. Real good, Statham said, genuinely impressed. I appreciate you getting this done so quickly. Earl beamed, his face crinkling with pride. Just doing my job, son. Glad I could help. He shut off the engine and began gathering his tools. So what do I owe you? Statham asked, reaching for his wallet. Earl scratched his chin, doing some mental calculations. Well, the fuel pump was, let's say, $50 and a couple hours of labor. I figure 75 should cover it. Statham stared at him, incredulous. $125? That's it. He knew that in any other garage, especially for a car like this, the bill would have been at least 5 times that amount. Earl shrugged. That's what it costs. That I ain't gonna cheat you. Fair price for fair work. That's my motto. Statham pulled out his wallet, revealing a thick wad of bills. He peeled off several $100 notes. Earl, you saved me a lot of trouble, and you did a fantastic job. This is worth a lot more than $125. He tried to hand Earl the money, but the old mechanic held up his hand, stopping him. Now hold on there, son. I appreciate the sentiment, but I can't take that. I told you the price, and that's what it is. Statham was taken aback by Earl's refusal. He was used to people trying to take advantage of him. Not turning down extra money, he looked at Earl, studying his face, seeing the unwavering honesty in his eyes, that he realized that Earl wasn't motivated by greed or fame. He was simply a man of principle, a relic of a bygone era. Earl, Statham said, his voice softening, I insist. You deserve it. But Earl remained firm. I appreciate the offer, son, but I can't. It wouldn't be right. He reached out and took only the $125, carefully counting the bills. Thank you kindly, he said, tucking the money into his pocket. Now you get yourself back on the road and drive safe. Statham, still determined to show his gratitude, decided on a different approach. That he knew Earl wouldn't accept a direct payment, so he tried to be more subtle. That he reached into his wallet again, this time pulling out a single, crisp $100 bill. Earl, he said, casually folding the bill in half, I really appreciate you squeezing me in today, and I know times are tough. Maybe this could help with us some shop supplies. He slid the folded bill onto a nearby workbench, hoping Earl would simply pocket it without making a fuss. Earl watched him, his eyes sharp and knowing. He picked up the folded bill, unfolded it, and held it up to the dim light, examining it as if it were a counterfeit. Son, he said, his voice firm but not unkind, I told you I appreciate the thought, but I don't need charity. That I run an honest business, and I make an honest living that I don't need handouts from anyone. He walked over to Statham and gently placed the $100 bill back in his hand. I take pride in my work, he continued, and I charge a fair price for it. That's how I've always done things, and that's how I'll continue to do things. He paused, his gaze locking with Statham's. I don't want your money, Dad, I just want your respect. Statham was speechless. He was used to people fawning over him, trying to get close to him for his fame and fortune. He had rarely encountered such unwavering integrity, such a deep-seated sense of self-worth. He looked at Earl, seeing not just an old mechanic, but a man of unwavering principle, a true embodiment of the values he had long forgotten. He took the $100 bill back. Feeling a sense of shame, he realized that he had underestimated Earl. Judging him based on his humble surroundings and simple lifestyle, he had tried to buy his gratitude, assuming that everyone could be bought. You're right, Earl, Statham said, his voice sincere. I'm sorry, Dad, I didn't mean to offend you. He extended his hand, and Earl shook it firmly, his grip surprisingly strong in that moment. A new level of respect blossomed between them, a mutual understanding that transcended their different worlds. Statham realized that he had received something far more valuable than a repaired car. He had received a lesson in integrity and the true meaning of self-worth. With the air cleared and a newfound respect between them, Statham prepared to leave. He shook Earl's hand again, offering a genuine smile. Thank you again, Earl, that you're a lifesaver. He climbed into the Jaguar, started the engine, and revved it gently as he was about to pull out of the driveway. A bicycle screeched to a halt in front of the garage at a young boy, no older than 10, with a shock of unruly red hair and a gap-toothed grin, jumped off the bike, his eyes wide with excitement. Mr. Statham! Mr. Statham! He yelled, pointing at the car. It's really you, I knew it. Statham froze, his hand still on the gear shift. He glanced at Earl, whose face was a mask of utter confusion. The boy, oblivious to the tension in the air, continued to gush. I saw you in the transporter, and Crank. You're awesome. Can I have her autograph? He pulled a crumpled piece of paper and a pen from his pocket, his excitement bubbling over. The silence that followed was deafening. Earl stared at Statham, his mouth slightly agape. The pieces of the puzzle were finally falling into place, and the picture that emerged was completely unexpected. He struggled to reconcile the humble, grateful man he had spent the afternoon with the action hero he had seen on the big screen. Jason Statham, Earl stammered, his voice barely a whisper. He looked from Statham to the boy and back again, his mind reeling. He had heard the name, of course, he'd seen the posters, the trailers. But he had never imagined that the famous actor would be standing in his garage, let alone needing his help. Statham sighed, his cover finally blown. He knew there was no point in denying it. He offered Earl a wry smile. Guilty as charged, he said, his voice resigned. The boy, still oblivious to Earl's shock, continued to wave the paper and pen. Please, Mr. Statham, just one autograph. Earl, however, remained rooted to the spot, his mind struggling to process the information. The man who had just lectured him about honesty and integrity was a Hollywood superstar. The man who had been so appreciative of his simple repair was a global icon. The man he had treated like any other customer was Jason Statham. The shock was almost too much to bear. The initial shock that rippled through Earl was quickly followed by a wave of disbelief. He squinted at Statham, tilting his head as if trying to see him from a different angle. Jason Statham. Huh? He muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. He chuckled softly, a sound that started deep in his belly and rumbled up to his throat. Then, amusement flickered across his face. The absurdity of the situation struck him. A Hollywood action star, stranded in his humble garage, needing his help. It was a scene straight out of a movie. Only this time, he was in it. But beneath the amusement, a quiet sense of pride began to bloom. He hadn't treated Statham any differently than he would have treated anyone else. He hadn't been swayed by fame or fortune, that he had simply done his job, honestly and fairly, just as he had always done. And in that moment, he realized that his values, his principles, had stood the test of time. He looked at the boy, who was still eagerly awaiting an autograph, and then back at Statham, who was patiently waiting for him to process everything. He saw the genuine respect in Statham's eyes, the quiet gratitude that transcended his celebrity status. Earl shook his head, a slow, deliberate movement. "Well, I'll be," he said, a smile spreading across his face. Jason Statham, imagine that. He turned his gaze inward, reflecting on his life, his choices, his values. He had lived a simple life, a life far removed from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. He had never chased fame or fortune. He had simply tried to be a good man, to do honest work, and to treat everyone with respect. And now, here he was, face to face with a movie star who seemed to appreciate those very qualities. He realized that he had something that money couldn't buy, something that fame couldn't provide, a clear conscience and a sense of inner peace. He had lived his life according to his own principles, and he wouldn't change a thing. He glanced at the faded sign above his garage, the sign that had been there for over 50 years. Earl's Garage. Honest repairs, fair prices. He smiled that IT was more than just a business slogan. It was a reflection of his life. And in that moment, he felt a profound sense of contentment, a quiet satisfaction that came from knowing he had lived his life well. Celebrity or not, everyone deserved the same honest treatment. Seeing the genuine pride and quiet contentment on Earl's face, Statham felt a surge of gratitude. He realized that this encounter, this unexpected detour in Harmony Creek, had been more meaningful than he could have ever imagined. IT wasn't just about getting his car fixed. It was about connecting with someone real, someone who saw him as a person, not a celebrity. He stepped out of the car, extending his hand to Earl once more. "Earl," he said, his voice sincere, "thank you, really, thank you, not just for fixing the car, but for everything." He paused, searching for the right words to express the depth of his appreciation. It's rare for me to have an experience like this," he continued. "To be treated like, well, like a regular person, without all the fanfare and the expectations." He gestured towards the boy, who was now fidgeting impatiently, still clutching his paper and pen. "I appreciate your honesty, your integrity, and the refreshing normalcy of this whole interaction. IT means more to me than you know." He explained, "Most people see me as Jason Statham, the movie star. They see the image, the persona, but they don't see the person underneath. You saw me as just another guy with a broken-down car, and you treated me with respect and kindness. That's something I haven't experienced in a long time." Statham added, "In my world, everything is calculated, everything is staged. People are always trying to get something from me. But you just wanted to help, and you did more than you know." He leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "This whole trip was about trying to escape that, to find some peace and quiet, to reconnect with myself. And you, Earl, you helped me do that. You reminded me of the importance of simple things, of honest work, and of genuine human connection." He stood up straight, offering Earl a warm smile. "So, thank you, Earl. From the bottom of my heart, thank you." He then turned to the boy, who was still waiting patiently. "All right, young man," he said with a wink. "Let's get you that autograph." He signed the paper with a flourish, adding a quick "stay awesome" before handing it back to the beaming boy. He ruffled the boy's hair, then turned back to Earl. "I'll be seeing you, Earl." As Statham drove away, leaving a cloud of dust in his wake, he knew he couldn't simply walk away from Harmony Creek and Earl's Garage. Earl's unwavering integrity and genuine kindness had touched him deeply, reminding him of values he had almost forgotten. He wanted to do something to show his appreciation, something that would truly make a difference in Earl's life, that he knew that Earl would never accept a direct gift. So he decided to be discreet. He called Rick, his trusted assistant, and explained the situation, emphasizing the importance of anonymity. He instructed Rick to find the best construction crew in the area and arrange for a complete renovation of Earl's Garage. "But Jason," Rick protested, "that's going to cost a fortune. Are you sure about this?" "Absolutely, Rick," Statham replied firmly. "Earl deserves it. Just make sure they do it right. I want them to modernize the garage, but I want them to preserve its original charm. Keep the old sign, the tool racks, the overall feel of the place. Just make it safer, more efficient, and more comfortable for Earl to work in." He emphasized, "And Rick, this is crucial. Earl can't know I'm behind this, that I want it to be a complete surprise." Rick, understanding the sincerity in Statham's voice, agreed to handle everything. Within a week, a construction crew descended upon Harmony Creek, much to the bewilderment of the locals. They descended upon Earl's garage and began working tirelessly, transforming the dilapidated structure into a state-of-the-art repair shop. They installed new electrical wiring, replaced the leaky roof, reinforced the foundation, and added modern equipment, including a hydraulic lift and a computerized diagnostic system. But they also took great care to preserve the garage's original character. They cleaned and restored the old tool racks, repainted the walls in the same faded blue color, and even polished the original Earl's Garage sign, making it shine like new. The transformation was remarkable that Earl's Garage went from being a dilapidated relic of the past to a modern, efficient workspace. While still retaining its original charm and character, IT was a testament to Earl's legacy, a symbol of his unwavering commitment to honesty and hard work. The secret benefactor wanted Earl to continue doing what he loved, but in a space that honored his dedication. Earl had taken a few days off, visiting his sister in a neighboring town that he'd left a note on the door, promising to return soon. When he finally drove back into Harmony Creek, he was looking forward to getting back to work, to the familiar rhythm of his garage. And as he approached the edge of town, he noticed something was different. There was a crowd of people gathered near his garage, their faces beaming with excitement. He slowed down, his brow furrowed with confusion. What was going on? He pulled into the driveway, his jaw dropping in disbelief. His garage, it was transformed that IT was still unmistakably Earl's Garage, but it was better. The faded blue paint gleamed like new, the roof was solid and sturdy, and the windows sparkled in the afternoon sun. He saw the new equipment inside. The hydraulic lift, the computerized diagnostic system, all gleaming under the bright lights. He stepped out of his truck, his legs feeling weak. He walked towards the garage, his heart pounding in his chest. The crowd parted, revealing the full extent of the transformation. He saw the restored tool racks, the polished Earl's Garage sign, the familiar clutter arranged neatly in its place. He ran a hand along the freshly painted wall, his fingers trembling. He couldn't believe his eyes. IT was like a dream, a surreal fantasy come to life. He turned to the crowd, his voice barely a whisper. What happened here? Mrs. Hemlock, the hardware store owner's wife, stepped forward, her face beaming with pride. Earl, it's a miracle. Someone came in and completely renovated your garage. It's the talk of the town. But who? Earl stammered, his mind racing. The crowd exchanged knowing glances, but no one spoke. Then, young Billy, the boy who had recognized Statham, stepped forward, his eyes shining. Mr. Statham did it. Earl, Jason Statham. He wanted to thank you for being so nice to him. The realization hit Earl like a ton of bricks. Jason Statham, the movie star, he had been so touched by Earl's kindness that he had secretly arranged for this incredible transformation. Tears welled up in Earl's eyes, blurring his vision. He was overwhelmed with emotion, gratitude, and disbelief. He had never expected anything like this. He had simply been himself, honest and fair, and it had led to this extraordinary act of kindness. The crowd erupted in applause, celebrating Earl's good fortune and his unwavering integrity. They knew that Earl deserved this, that he had earned it through years of hard work and dedication. Harmony Creek was celebrating one of their own, a testament to the power of kindness and the unexpected rewards of living an honest life. The renovated garage breathed new life into Earl's business. He could now handle modern cars, as well as the classics, attracting a wider range of customers. But more than the increased business, Earl cherished the memory of Jason Statham and the unexpected friendship that had blossomed between them. But a few months later, a sleek, black SUV pulled up in front of Earl's garage. Earl, who was tinkering with a vintage engine, looked up and saw a familiar figure emerge from the vehicle. IT was Jason Statham, but Earl's face lit up with a wide smile. Well, I'll be Jason. It's good to see you. He wiped his hands on a rag and hurried over to greet him. Statham returned the smile, extending his hand. Earl, it's great to be back. I wanted to see how you were doing and check out the new garage. Earl beamed with pride, Showing Statham around the renovated space, he pointed out the new equipment, explaining how it had made his work easier and more efficient. He emphasized how grateful he was for Statham's generosity. "Jason, I still can't believe you did all this," Earl said, shaking his head in disbelief. "It's changed my life." Statham chuckled. "You deserved it, Earl, that you're a good man." Over the next few hours, the two men talked about cars, life, and everything in between. They discovered a shared passion for classic automobiles, swapping stories and sharing their knowledge. Statham was genuinely interested in Earl's expertise, peppering him with questions about vintage engines and repair techniques. Their friendship transcended their different worlds, bridging the gap between Hollywood glamour and small-town simplicity. They were two men from different backgrounds, bound together by a shared appreciation for honesty, integrity, and the love of automobiles. Statham visited Earl several times over the next few years, always making time to stop by Harmony Creek whenever he was in the area. They would spend hours in the garage, working on cars, sharing stories, and simply enjoying each other's company. Their friendship became a local legend, a testament to the power of human connection and the unexpected ways in which lives can intersect. That IT was a reminder that true friendship knows no boundaries, that it can blossom in the most unlikely of places, between the most unlikely of people. Young Billy, bursting with pride and excitement, couldn't keep the story to himself. He told everyone he knew about the day Jason Statham came to Harmony Creek and how Earl had helped him. He even posted about it on his mom's Facebook page, complete with a slightly blurry photo of Statham signing his autograph. The internet, as it often does, took over from there. The story spread like wildfire, fueled by its heartwarming message of kindness, honesty, and the unexpected connections that can blossom in the most unlikely of places. Action Star Helps Elderly Mechanic became a viral sensation, shared and retweeted millions of times. Soon, news crews from around the world descended upon Harmony Creek, eager to capture the story of Earl and Jason Statham. They interviewed Earl, his neighbors, and even young Billy, who reveled in his newfound fame. They filmed the renovated garage, showcasing its modern equipment and its preserved charm. Earl, thrust into the spotlight, remained humble and unassuming. That he told the reporters that he had simply done his job, that he had treated Jason Statham like any other customer. He emphasized the importance of honesty, hard work, and treating everyone with respect. He never sought the attention, but he used his newfound platform to promote the values he held dear. Harmony Creek, once a forgotten town on the verge of extinction, experienced a resurgence of interest. Tourists flocked to the area, eager to see Earl's garage and experience the charm of the small town that had captured the world's attention. Businesses thrived, and the town experienced a much-needed economic boost. Earl became a local hero, a symbol of integrity and small-town values. He received awards and accolades, but he never let it go to his head. He continued to run his garage, fixing cars and dispensing wisdom to anyone who needed it. The media frenzy eventually subsided, but the story of Earl and Jason Statham remained a source of inspiration and hope. That IT was a reminder that kindness and honesty can have a profound impact, that even the smallest acts of generosity can ripple outwards, transforming lives and communities. And Earl, the humble mechanic from Harmony Creek, became a living testament to the power of those values. Years passed, and Harmony Creek thrived. The influx of tourists gradually subsided, but the town retained a newfound sense of pride and prosperity. Earl's garage remained a central fixture, a symbol of the town's resilience and the enduring power of small-town values. Earl, though getting older, continued to work in his garage, his hands still capable of coaxing life back into sputtering engines. He had hired a young apprentice, a bright and eager local kid named Mikey, who was learning the trade from the master. Earl passed on his knowledge and his values, ensuring that his legacy of honesty and integrity would continue. And every now and then, a sleek, black SUV would pull up in front of Earl's garage, and Jason Statham would emerge, his face creasing into a familiar smile. The visits became less frequent as Statham's career demanded more of his time, but he always made an effort to reconnect with his old friend. They would spend hours in the garage, reminiscing about their first encounter, sharing stories, and working on cars. Statham, despite his fame and fortune, always seemed to find solace and peace in the quiet simplicity of Earl's garage. It was a reminder of the values that truly mattered, the values that had shaped his life and guided his choices. The story of Earl and Jason Statham became a local legend, passed down through generations. It was a tale of kindness, integrity, and unexpected connections. It was a story about how a chance encounter could transform lives, how a single act of generosity could ripple outwards, and how true friendship could blossom in the most unlikely of places. People would come from miles around to visit Earl's garage, not just to get their cars fixed, but to hear the story firsthand, to experience the warmth and authenticity that permeated the place. Earl, ever humble and unassuming, would always oblige, sharing his tale with a twinkle in his eye. And as the sun set over Harmony Creek, casting long shadows across the valley, Earl would often reflect on his life, on the unexpected turn it had taken, and on the enduring friendship he had forged with Jason Statham. But he knew that their story was more than just a local legend. It was a testament to the power of kindness, the importance of integrity, and the unexpected connections that can make life so rich and meaningful. That it all started with a broken-down Jaguar, and it ended with a friendship that would last a lifetime.